by Supervisor Safa'i, who is the primary sponsor of this charter amendment. Supervisor Safa'i, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Peskin. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you to all the individuals that both came in person and called in over the phone. This is something that I think people have been talking about and thinking about for some time, the creation of a charter for this department. This is one of the largest, if not the largest, city department. This upcoming fiscal year, it will have almost a $700 million budget, and it is without a oversight chartered commission. For me, the motivating factor is truly transparency, oversight, and accountability. And this is not a dig at the department or its leadership. I think they work tremendously hard. I think they do everything they can to deliver a very difficult service. But this is truly about bringing this department
in
line with the oversight, accountability, and transparency that we have in other departments. When we are here as the vice chair of the budget committee, oftentimes we will find out about items that will be coming in front of us the Friday before the Wednesday.
You just shut up.
And that is a significant disadvantage, to be asked to review contracts, asked to be weigh in on a significant policy decision at the last moment when we are talking about one of the most vexing problems that has faced San Francisco for decades. So for me, as someone that spent almost half of his career on the streets, in the Tenderloin, at the Housing Authority, with the Janitors Union, dealing with many people in affordable housing, permanent supportive housing,
shut the fuck up, Ahsha. You don't...
This is an extremely important step I think our city is making. And to answer the question about accountability, first and foremost, this is an executive strong city. If people don't like the fact that this is an executive strong city, they can go to the charter and they can confront that head on.
Which is what we're trying to do, dumbass.
The Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing is an executive appointed and executive run department. And the buck needs to stop with someone. There needs to be someone that is first and foremost held accountable. The Board of Supervisors, all of my colleagues and I, field a tremendous number of calls. There's a tremendous amount of dissatisfaction in the city as this issue is dealt with and confronted with. And yes, we are too held accountable. I think Supervisor and Chair Peskin said it best when we started this conversation. Myself, as a former chair of the Rules Committee, when we have mayoral majority commissions, that the mayoral positions are subject to board confirmation, I think about 99% of the time we get it right. And if there is a proposed person to come into one of the seats of the mayor position, the board does its job and holds the mayor's office and that person accountable. There's been times when we've had to reject the mayor's proposals. And I think that with mayoral confirmation at the board and the board having a strong number of seats, I think this strikes the right balance. Because I think first and foremost, the mayor is the one that will be held accountable and should be held accountable. And the Board of Supervisors,
we've been trying to hold her accountable for years. She's had her thumb on the scale for the past 20 years.
Our ability to affirm the mayor
Newsom, Lee, and Breed
gives us that additional power of oversight and check and balance. We will be proposing some amendments today. We have gotten feedback. Because we are making those amendments today, I wanted the public to know this item will be continued as required because it is a charter amendment. So we'll have an opportunity to continue the conversation. Folks will have an opportunity to weigh in further. And as I said earlier, this is a department with almost a $700 million budget, and yet there's no public hearing or commission approval for its work. And I think that's something that has to change. Some contracts, but not all, come to the Board of Supervisors for approval. And there is no requirement that the services of this critical department are audited on a continual basis. That's another change that we are proposing in this charter amendment, and that's something that we're working on, and we think it needs improvement. So if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I can go through the amendments that I'm proposing today that have been distributed to the committee. So I'll start on page 2, lines 10 through 19. The city attorney proposed and we accepted technical amendments that describe the appointment process. On page 2, lines 24 through page 3, line 2, we would require that one of the mayoral appointments also have experience with budgeting, finance, and auditing. We received a lot of calls and concerns about having someone that would also have that background, fiscal background. So it doesn't change the requirements for those positions. It just says one of the persons on top of the initial requirements would also have some experience in budgeting and finance. On page 4, line 1, we correct a grammatical error to make that provision clear, so I know Mr. Pilpel will appreciate that. On page 5, line 6, at the request of the Our City, Our Home Oversight Committee, we took their request, and
you didn't take enough of their request,
currently have the responsibility
dumbass.
to advise the mayor and the board. We will keep that, and it will be both an advisory role for the mayor and the board, and along with the new commission. The thing that I think we will have to work out, and I think we can work out administratively, is that the processes for the department doing its budget, and when Our City, Our Home is having its timeline, those would need to come in line, so that the work is happening on the same timeline to kind of facilitate the work of the department and facilitate the work of Our City, Our Home. But we can have further conversations about that. And then on page 7, line 7, we specify that the controller can audit homeless services as part of the city services auditor's responsibility.
That's a good one.
This will be the first time that the city controller would have the ability, as part of his city auditor's responsibility, to have additional responsibility to do this work on homeless services. So we'll have an opportunity to discuss all of these policies issues at the future meetings. So in the interest of time, I'm happy to hand that back over to the chair and would request that the committee adopt these proposed amendments today.